Believe it or not, there was a time that the biggest Minecraft minigame started with 15 minutes of just mining. You didn't start with any kits, you didn't have any resource generators, and there were no endless respawns. Instead, you were placed inside of one corner of the map, separated from everyone else by enormous walls, and you had 15 minutes to find food, explore caves, craft your armor, and prepare to fight everyone else on the map. And when those walls came down, you best believe you better be ready to fight. For a couple of years, the walls was literally everywhere. It appeared on some of the biggest Minecraft servers, received millions upon millions of views on YouTube, and helped establish Hypixel before it became the largest Minecraft server in the world. Today, the original game still technically exists, but the problem is finding enough people to actually get on and play it. So, how did the walls go from one of Minecraft's defining minigames to being a nearly empty corner on the server it helped create? The original Walls game mode was created by Hypixel in 2012. To some of you youngings who may not know this was before Hypixel was even a public server. At the time, Hypixel was just creating ambitious custom maps for people to play. The Walls was just another downloadable map created by them, but unlike Hypixel's adventure releases, it was built around competitive survival. The Walls was a pretty simple game mode. It was divided into 4 separate sections by enormous sand walls. Depending on the version, individual players or small teams were placed into each section and given 15 minutes to prepare. You didn't even start with a kit in the original. You had to punch trees, make tools, and search around caves to get your armor ready for when the walls dropped. Throughout the map, there was also some hidden resources for any players who were willing to explore. I personally was the kind of player who would hide underground and hope to God that nobody found me. Once the timer reached 0, the sand walls would collapse and connect all 4 sections. At that point, anything you had from the preparation phase is what you got, and you had to go fight or die. Or hide, I guess. It was a very, very simple idea, but it used Minecraft better than most early minigames. The walls did not remove any element of survival to make room for PvP. It turned survival into an integral part of PvP. Any single decision you made during those first 15 minutes affected the final battle. You could rush into caves looking for better equipment, but risk being underground when the walls dropped. Or you could stay near the surface and build defenses, but another team might enter the fight with better armor. You could create traps, prepare potions, or even build a large TNT cannon if you had the time, resources, and inclination to do so. You could even have a cross-team alliance, but remember, only one player or one team was allowed to win. Betraying each other was basically encouraged. Each one of 4 teams knew a fight was coming at the end of 15 minutes. You just did not know how prepared everyone else would be when it finally arrived. That kind of countdown gave the walls something every modern minigame lacks now: tension and preparation. The first actual problem with the walls was nothing to do with its core gameplay, it was just really hard to organize. Someone had to download the map, host the server, gather enough players to play, place everyone in the correct starting areas, and then reset the world after every single match. This was pretty manageable for a group of YouTubers trying to make content. It was much less accessible for a regular player or a kid like me who just wanted to play a game and join it. And then dedicated servers solved that problem. MC The Walls launched in August 2012 and eventually became part of the broader Minecade network. The one thing that Minecade did was it automated the entire Walls experience. Players could click a button, join a lobby, enter a match, and have the map reset afterward. This made it way easier and more accessible for people to access the game mode. No more poor 10-year-old Brady trying to figure out how to host a server so him and his elementary friends can play the Walls. On Minecade, the Walls became an incredibly competitive game mode with tournaments and statistics tracking for everything. People memorized the maps, they memorized the resource layout, everything, and it became an integral part of the more competitive Minecade community. And then Hypixel launched its own server in April 2013. The Walls became one of the network's original headline game modes alongside Blitz survival games, of course. The official Hypixel version featured multiple maps, automated matchmaking, and unlockable perks, tournaments, and a large audience of new players arriving onto Hypixel. The Walls helped Hypixel move beyond adventure map creation into minigame creation, and now it was helping establish Hypixel as the minigame server. And honestly, the release of the Walls arrived at the perfect point in Minecraft YouTube history. At that point, large collaborative minigame videos were taking over the platform, and creators needed games that would accommodate several YouTube friends, provide a clear objective for viewers to understand, and leave room for their personalities to carry over in the video. And oh boy did the Walls perfectly meet all 3 criteria. You had the Bayesian Canadian, Jerome ASF, Husky Mudkip, Skydoes Minecraft, Sato Sorcerer, all of the Team Crafted guys, they were all playing this game constantly. And what a more perfect game mode for them. They had 15 minutes of prep time where they could talk, banter with each other, and then they would go for 15 minutes of fighting each other, and then whoever won the match got to have bragging rights for the next one. I will say that the 15-minute preparation phase was very dependent on the people playing it. Watching the Bayesian Canadian and Jerome arguing over who got what resources was awesome, but some YouTubers like Ant Venom watching them mine iron for 15 minutes was not very fun. While the original Walls game mode was successful, Hypixel wanted to expand on the idea more. They ended up introducing Mega Walls, a much larger and more complicated evolution of the original Walls format. The Mega Walls kept the same idea of 4 teams preparing and then fighting when the walls dropped, but it allowed a respawn mechanic for each team. Basically, you just had to kill the enemy team's wither and kill every single one of its members. There was also an added kit progression into it, making it a little bit easier for new players to want to keep on playing more, and the respawn mechanic helped with if you died, you didn't have to sit and wait for the match to end. And with Hypixel making their own interpretation of the walls, every other server hopped on the bandwagon. Mineplex ended up creating the bridges where teams would gather resources on separate islands before the bridges appeared, allowing them to attack one another, and CubeCraft ended up introducing the money walls, which was a really weird combination between Hypixel's walls and Egg Wars, where you had resource generators but you still had to defend your wither. I think out of the 3 that the money walls was kind of the most lacking, but it was still pretty fun. You might be wondering to yourself, Brady, if every server had a walls variant on it and so much development went into it, where did the walls end up going? And honestly, I don't really think the walls ever truly left these servers. I mean, you can still play the bridges on Mineplex today, the Mega Walls is still there on Hypixel. It might take about like half an hour to fill up for a match of it, but it's still there and there's still communities around it. But the overall PvP community ended up deciding that Skywars was the way to go. Instead of having to grind and get ready for 10 to 15 minutes, you immediately got dropped down, got your resources, and immediately got to PvP. Same thing with Bed Wars eventually, offering many of the same appeals as the walls of resource generation without forcing everyone to wait 15 minutes before they could actually go fight. I wouldn't go as far to say that Bed Wars is a direct sequel to the walls, but I think it still takes that resource generation respawn mechanic kind of in the same way. The original Walls was just kind of designed for a different era of Minecraft players who love to download custom maps and organize long matches with their personal friends. Nowadays, it's way easier to hop on with randoms and play a 15-minute Bed War than a 30 to 45-minute Walls game. And I think too the other biggest issue is that the Walls community kinda just collapsed. Mindcade was the first server to go. Back in the mid-2010s, players were describing that there was missing updates, absent server leadership, and discontinued tournaments. And the competitive PvP community was slowly moving away from Mindcade into servers like Badline. In 2016, MC The Walls was removed from Mindcade under the label of maintenance, and it never really made a return. Hypixel's version is still around, but it doesn't really have any players anymore. When you're competing with constantly updated Bed Wars, Skyblock, and Sky Wars, it's kind of hard if you haven't had an update in over a year. When you don't have enough players to even form a match for the game, it's hard to get new players to come check it out if they can't even get into a game. Like I said before, the Walls still does exist on Hypixel and Mineplex. It is not a removed game mode. It remains possible to get a group together, get onto the servers, and actually queue up and play it. Just this last week, me and my buddies got on, we teamed up for the bridges and got absolutely rolled by probably 13-year-olds playing for the first time. But all of the servers dedicated to the Walls have been empty or offline for years. Even on Hypixel, where there's tens of thousands of people online at any given moment, the original Walls game mode has really no to few players waiting for a game. Unless you join a community Discord where they schedule a game to play the Walls, finding a match could literally be hours. I would still say that the individual pieces of the Walls are still everywhere to be seen. Almost every PvP game mode now has separated teams, resource gathering, base preparation, and limited respawns, and one final attack to end the game. The Walls was not just replaced by one game, it was slowly divided into parts between an entire generation of new PvP game modes. I honestly think that's why its disappearance still feels so strange to people like me, because the original game is empty, but the ideas that made it so successful have never been more popular. I still think that the only weakness the game mode truly had was the 15-minute preparation period, but that's what kind of made it different to me. You weren't handed a loadout, you were given a small piece of a Minecraft world in a limited time to set it up to fight. Whatever that you decided to mine, craft, build, or plan was all that you had to do. You got everything prepared for when the walls would finally come down and you'd find out if what you prepared was enough or not. And that was the beauty of it for me, and I'm still sad that the game mode is not in a good place anymore. Anyways, you guys, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to check out some of my other Minecraft videos, just click those buttons on the screen or look at my playlist. I have a lot of really cool videos. Thanks for watching.